everyone. I'm Doug Barber. This is Jeff Bacon, Milton Corney, and Robin Poon, and collectively we are Team Raptor Force. Our project was a fantasy football league mock draft. So we're going to talk a little bit about exactly what that is. Oops. What is a mock draft?
You might be thinking, what is a mock draft? In our application, we have where one or more person is allowed to create a team and to fill a roster. In this, there are statistics which helps you pick your player, such as how many touchdowns the player has made, and how many sacks they made, for you to better pick which player you can put on your team to go against the opponent. Also, we have the rankings of the players. And we have rankings of the players from the best players to the worst players, and you can choose each position from running backs to receivers, and also quarterbacks. For the users, we have it set up. It's already predetermined the order in which the draft occurs. The user, every time that you launch into the program, the user picks first, and then the computer goes after, and then it goes in reverse order after each round back to the user until the whole draft process is complete.
Okay, so you might be asking why you want to run a mock draft, and the short answer is for practice, to prepare you for the real thing. A lot of fantasy football leagues, the one I'm in, for example, they cost money to join. Some of them cost a lot of money, and you only get one shot at the draft for each team each season. So what this allows you to do is you can run it as many times as you want, free of charge, and you can come up with strategies as far as which players might go in which rounds. Maybe if somebody in your league is also running this, you can determine which players or positions they tend to favor, like this guy always gets a quarterback in the third round, or whatever the case may be. And the idea is to get you ready for the actual draft when there might be money on the line.
The user will need a Microsoft Windows XP or later version operating system, and .NET framework of 4.0, and the internet connection for the database to connect. And we use Microsoft Visual C#, Microsoft SQL Server, and Database Write controls to develop this project.
All right, so let's see it in action. And I do apologize, we're actually having to TeamViewer into a computer at my house because the port for SQL is firewalled off here. That's so easy. All right, so. Here's the configuration screen, and Jeff's going to tell us a little bit about it.
All right, so once you launch the application here, you can actually configure your draft in a number of ways. You can actually name your team, you can choose how many teams are participating in the draft, you can choose your position in the draft, and it also will, depending on how many rounds you're going, it will automatically set how many players of each position you can draft, or you could do it manually yourself. See, right now the bench number is changing, but
Right, that's actually a catch-all for players of any position, and the flex category is players that are either wide receivers or running backs.
So for this purpose, time purposes, we're going to go with the minimum number of rounds and show you what the draft is made of.
Also, you're going to set it up to where it starts in about 10 seconds instead of 30. So, make you guys wait that long. All right, so it's going to pull all the players from our SQL database. You can see them over here, and this is the timer before the draft starts. So you can see we've got all our players in this grid over here, arranged by position. This grid over here is called the watch list, and say there's a player that I'm interested in, I can move them over here, or I could move them back over to the grid, and I've got statistics down here in this bottom grid. It's actually a little bit difficult to see through the team viewer. But this up top is a round by round summary of the draft. You can see in the first round, since I took more than the 30 seconds that's allotted to pick somebody for me, and then in the second round, the draft order reverses. And if I have somebody in the watch list, it's actually going to pick whoever's first in that watch list. If I don't, then it's going to go through an algorithm that we have, and it's going to determine who the best available player is, and if there's a need for that position, we'll draft that player. If not, it's going to look at the next best available. It's my turn again, so I'm going to just arbitrarily pick somebody. If I click this big draft button, it's going to ask me to confirm it. We'll say yeah, and it's going to move them over to my team. So right now the computer is picking its guys. It reverses order and goes back up. And it's very fast at first. As it gets a little deeper in the round, it has to think a little bit, so it takes a little bit longer. These tabs over here actually allow me to sort by position. So I've got it set to where it's only going to show me wide receivers right now. Get rid of that guy. And these stats on the bottom, they change according to which position, because not all of the statistics are pertinent to all the positions. For example, like a kicker, I'm probably not interested in his passing yards. It's probably going to be 0. We'll draft a tight end next. As I said, it gets a little slower for the computer as it goes through the later rounds. In the first round, they take less than like a quarter of a second to pick. Now it takes a second or two before it finds somebody. And when it gets back up to me, I'm going to try and draft another tight end, even though the configuration for the draft only lets me have one tight end. Since I have an available bench spot, it's going to let me get that guy anyways. Now I have no more spots on my bench. So for the next round, say I try to get another tight end, it's not going to let me do it since I have no bench slots and I've already filled that position. So let's do a running back. I've already got one of those also. However, since I have an available flex spot, it's going to let me fill that with the running back where I couldn't pick the tight end. And last round. Now it's taken about 2 or 3 seconds for the computer to pick. It's just got more guys to go through before it finds an acceptable one. And when it's back to my turn, I think I got to pick a kicker. So I'm just gonna arbitrarily grab somebody. And upon the completion of the draft, it's gonna pop this up to where I can send an email to myself or whoever with the results of the draft. Let's go ahead and send it to Jeff's SLU account. Is that correct? Jeffrey.bacon?
That's right.
All right. And upon sending the email, it's going to end the program for me. And at this point, I can go over and here it is, just came in. Here's my draft results. It's going to give a round-by-round summary of each team and who they picked that particular round, all the way to the bottom. And it's just in plain text, so you should be able to look at it with any browser, mobile phone, whatever the case may be, and print it, save it to a text file, whatever you'd like to do with it. So, back to the slideshow. I'm going to talk about what each of us did, and then I'm going to open the floor for questions. Okay, so again, I'm Doug. I did most of the SQL database work as far as creating, maintaining, populating the database and the relations between our tables. I also did the AI for the computer picks, or for when the timer runs out. When you're picking, it's going to use a very similar algorithm and pick somebody for you. I did some of the other behind-the-scenes algorithms. The actual drafting process as far as determining whose turn it is in what round, reversing the order, things like that. Logging the events of each round across the top, and then I worked on the GUI sum. Jeff?
Jeff Bacon, and I worked on algorithms, displaying statistics, also did emailing, some user interface work also.
I'm Milton. I worked on some of the help files, some of the graphical user interface, and also the drafting process also.
And I explained, I'm working in draft user after the completion of completion of the round, and yeah.
The help files that Milton mentioned, I actually forgot to show you guys this, but at any point configuring during the draft, whenever, you can actually hit F1 and it's gonna take you to, depending on where you are, on which screen you are, it's gonna bring you to a CHM help file that will explain what all the options are if you're not sure on the draft process and how that goes. So that concludes our project, and I'm going to open the floor to questions. Thanks.
Got one here.
Sir.
How'd you pull the stats?
They're in the SQL database.
But how'd they get there, I guess? I mean, were they manual or were they?
Somewhat manual. I was able to get them in an Excel spreadsheet and then import that into Microsoft SQL Server through Management Studio. And I had to touch it up a little bit after that. They weren't exactly how I wanted, but I think I got them from either Yahoo or ESPN. They actually do have SQL databases where you can get all these stats, but unfortunately they cost a lot of money, so that wasn't really an option. Yes, sir.
The algorithm for picking the best players, that was based on last year's performance of the different
Correct.
players?
It's based somewhat on last year's. It's actually based on what's called an ADP ranking, which is basically ESPN, Yahoo, all the CBS, Fox Sports, etc. They determine a ranking of which order they think which players are going to go, and it's based on their productivity and then also their position, things like that.
Take one more question.
Yes, sir.
So how do you think you can make the picking algorithm faster?
That's a good question. Probably if I cleaned up the database a little bit, that'd probably make it faster. Also, it iterates starting through the top ranked player and then each successive player. So if I probably started at, say after the top 10 guys have been picked, if I start looking at the 11th guy, I imagine that would go a bit faster. All right, thank you all.